everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Three Girls, One Monthly Catch Up. This time we are going to be doing our monthly catch up for the month of September. So, as always, this is something that we like to do to just catch up on what decks and media and books and other fun life events we've been enjoying over the course of the past month. And as always, we enjoy doing this together because it's more fun and it keeps us accountable for actually doing it. Because before this, we were all really bad at monthly favorites, but now we're good at it, which is great. So, anyway, as usual, we are going to start with our first topic, which is decks, tarot and oracle decks that we have enjoyed using over the past month. So, I am going to kick it over to Heather and let her talk about her decks.
So I only have one to talk about because I've been using it all month because I am obsessed. And that is the final copy of the Heartwood tarot that came in the post. And I think I've probably shown this before, but I love this deck. I love this deck. Like, I'm full on obsessed. And now I think if you ask me which of the three trees tarot was my favorite, my answer would be whichever one I happen to have in my hand at that moment in time, because I just love them all. I'm obsessed. I want to be this mouse and go and live in an abandoned cottage in the woods where no one can find me as well. That is the dream right now. But yeah, I love this. I love this. I'm really excited for the next one, which I know Sarah is probably less excited for because it's the little spider from Thistledown and from this one. But yeah, I like this. I think I said it before, but I wasn't sure if I was even going to get this one because I was like, I don't know if it does anything different to the oak, ash and thorn, but it really does. It really, really does. And that whole abandoned house vibe where there's still like food on the table and candles lit and stuff in the larder and stuff just adds a whole like gothic horror vibe to this deck, which I really, really like. I really like.
I will just go out straight on a limb and say this is my favorite Three Trees deck. Heartwood
is it? Oh,
it's my favorite. I've come to the conclusion that it is my favorite. So
I do like it a lot. I think it possibly is my favorite too, although I do really, really, really like the oak, ash and thorn as well. But then I also really like the oracle as well. I don't know. I like them all. It's too hard.
They're all good. They're all good.
Also, I'm a Libran, and if you force me to make a decision, I panic. So it's like, I like everything. So yeah. So I have been just, again, like I said last month, I've not really been doing like deep diving in tarot. I've not really been journaling or anything, but I have been pulling cards when I feel like it and doing like random 3-card spreads and stuff just when I have some stuff on my mind that I want tarot to help me out with. And just... And now in October, and it's still the deck that I have out and I'm using because I am that obsessed with it that I think I need something else to come in the post before I move on at this point in my life. So yeah, so that's it. I've not used any oracle again this month.
All right, Julie is next.
Okay, so we talked about this in our most recent Three Girls live, One Deck live, but the deck that I have been working with or worked with all September was called the Full for Tarot by Rumor Haven. She has a YouTube channel and she created this deck, and this is based on the Fool's Journey of Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And it is a pip deck, and I've just been having like the best time with this deck. It's been so much fun. I agree with all of her choices and why she chose, the images that she did. I'm getting a lot of pips here. But yeah, it's a really good time. And I don't really have much to say other than that. It's been a lot of fun. Daily draws. It reads very easily for me. because I know the rationale of all the images and they make sense to me. And so I was using this. And then also, what came in the mail was this deck right here, which is the Black Salt Oracle by Logan from Larkin Legend. So they had sent me a prototype of this to share on my channel, but it wasn't the full deck. And so now that I finally have the full deck with like the guidebook and everything, I've been pairing like these two together, and I just think they look great. Oops, I
They
just think they
do.
look
They
so
do
nice.
go together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
I was wondering if I was wondering if maybe there'd be like too much black, but actually I really love it. So it's been really fun to work with this as well. I think they work just very nicely together, given that they're both like both contemporary in feel and just aesthetic wise, I'm all about it. And it's been fun getting to actually see all of the images in the Black Salt and like read in Logan's guidebook. So yeah, these two have just been a really good time. So this is pretty much what I have been using or was using all of September. And then this other one I also talked about in the recent Three Girls, which is the What Would Keanu Do deck. And this is just a good time. I would just pull one card a week. It's basically like a deck of all Keanu from movies and, you know, events and just kind of being seen by paparazzi. And then so you have an image, and then you have written on the back like a message and some trivia on where the image comes from. So this has been my stalker card actually. What to do about nothing, Keanu, telling me to meditate. So those were the three that I worked with in September.
So for me, I went through a little bit of a tarot slump in September. So I had decks that I was working with, but I will be perfectly honest, I wasn't working with them that much. I think I maybe did like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks worth of daily draws in the entirety of September. And then aside from that, I was just kind of like skipping it most days. And so I think that, you know, these are decks that I am going to, they're decks that I love, but I just didn't get as much use out of them as I wanted to in the month of September. So I'll go back to them in some other future month. It wasn't the deck's fault. It was just me having a little bit of a slump. But the deck that I used, was my very beloved Solara Occulto. I mean, I adore this deck. It's just a wonderful, interesting. I love the color palette. I love the slightly weird artwork. I love the way that everybody's hair is flying straight up against the pull of gravity. I love all the weird little characters in this deck. Like, look at this awesome strength card. It's just all of the cups cards, a lot of them have like weird fish creatures in them, almost like in the shape of water, which I greatly enjoy. So it's just, I don't know, it's a beautiful deck. It's wonderful. I've always enjoyed it. I will say, funnily enough, like, you may have noticed that this is my old copy. I think what I have is the second edition. And so this is the copy of this deck that I originally had, and the creator of this deck came out with it not like last year sometime. I think it was early last year, in a new edition, which I did back on Kickstarter, and is beautiful. It has black edges and all this like gold foiling on the back, and it's like really, really gorgeous. And I still love my old one more. So I think I'm going to actually rehome the new one, because as soon as I got it out, I was like, no, I love my old one.
Aww.
So, but the Oracle deck that I was working with it was the most perfect Oracle deck ever to pair with it, which is this one. Oracle Medieval et Merveilleux. That's just god awful pronunciation what I just did, but
at least you tried.
Yeah, don't listen to what I just said. It's embarrassing. But anyway, these two decks like together are unreal how well they pair. Like it's unreal how well they pair. And they were one, you know, on the days that I did draw cards, they were wonderful to use together. Like it was a great pairing that I loved. I just like wasn't in a super card slingy place in September. So I will return to this pairing at some point. Like, look at this. Like,
Yeah, that's perfect. It really
perfect.
is.
The color palette, the art style, and it's two different artists. It's not the same artist, but like
It looks good. Yeah.
they really, really suit each other. So this is a pairing I will return to at some point when I am having a more tarot-y kind of month, because it's just too good to even be real, this pairing. But yeah, I didn't have a great September as far as cards. So those were my two decks that I used to some extent in the month of September. So yeah, that's it for me. So next up, I think our regular topic is we talk about some of the books that we enjoyed during the month of September. So Heather, you're up.
So I think I read 7 books in September, but I'm only going to talk about 2 of them. So I read All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, which was, oh my God, it's one of the best books I've read all year. It was so good. So S.A. Cosby is like, he writes kind of like dude fiction, murder mystery type thrillers types books, but so well. So this was a story of our main character is Titus, who is a ex FBI. He's a black man in a small town in the south of the US who gets elected to sheriff, and literally a year to the day that he's elected, a black kid walks into a school and shoots a white teacher and then is shot by the white deputies. And then as part of that investigation into the shooting to confirm whether or not it was a good shooting, they discover that there is a serial killer that's been operating in this small town that nobody's been aware of for years and years and years. And it's like it went in some of the direction that I expected it to go in when this kid walked into a school and shot one teacher. I was like, I feel like I know where this is going. And then it went wild. It just went wild. And it's at its core, it's a book about a serial killer in this small town, but it's about racism, and it's about like small town, like small mindedness in small towns, and religious fanaticism. And it was so good. And every character was so well written. I read it in a day. It was that good. I read it on a Saturday. I started it on a whim and I just spent all day with it because I just didn't want to put it down. I was like, I have to know how this ends. Honestly, the best book I've read all year. I would if you like thrillers and that like murder mystery investigation-y type stuff, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's probably the best thriller I've ever read as well. Okay. So that was very good. And then I audio listened to When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. Now this one apparently was also a thriller, but as a thriller, it didn't really work because it was very yeah, well, it was really slow. So this again, it's kind of that racism seemed to be a theme for me this month, but it's about gentrification of high minority areas where, you know, most of the residents are black and Asian, but it felt like a horror. It genuinely it built like a horror. It was very, very slow, but there were moments that were genuinely scary that were happening to these people. And then the end was fucking wild. It was just, you know how like horrors, like Get Out is what it's been comped to, like a mix of Rear Window and Get Out. And it did what Get Out does, where you know that something is weird and something is not right, but you cannot put your finger on what it is. And it's so, under normal circumstances, it's just like, it's so normal, but there's something about the underlying way that somebody says something, or the decision that's been made, or that makes you go, this is not normal. There's something horrible happening here. And then at the end, it just goes wild, and there's guns and secret facilities, and it was mind-blowing. It was good. It was really good. This again is about a woman who moves, a Black woman moves back to her hometown. Her mother is dying, and she notices that the neighborhood is just changing around her, and like Black people are moving out overnight, or the local Asian guy who owns the shop is open one day, and the next day they go in and it's a white man running the shop, and he says that the Asian guy has been deported or whatever, and it's just, and then people have apparently moved, but they're not keeping in touch with the neighbors that they've known for like 25 years. And as it's going on, you're like, this is so fucking weird, what is happening to these people? And then it goes wild. It was very, very good. Very, very good. I just think she apparently has written loads before in another genre. I don't know what genre. And this was her first attempt at a thriller, and that's what they marketed it as. But I think if they marketed it as a horror, more people would appreciate what she was doing with it. So, but it was good. I would recommend it. The audio was good. It's dual point of view, Sydney, and then the woke white guy who's actually very likable and very well written. So it was good. I would recommend both.
All right, Julie's next.
Okay, I'm gonna probably keep this short because I didn't do much reading. I did read Lone Women by Victor Laval, which I won't spend too much time on. We have a Three Girls, One Book that y'all can watch if you're interested in getting our thoughts on that book. But essentially, as I discussed in that live, I had some trouble getting into the book. And I had told myself, you can't be reading anything else until you finish this book, which means then I wasn't reading much of anything else because I was lagging on this book. And it was a good book. So check out the live. So finish that. I also finished, speaking of Rumor Haven, I finished her short story collection called Myths, Mothers, and Mystics. And it was completely coincidental that I was reading her short story collection and then got her deck. I don't have like an unhealthy obsession with, or maybe I do. It's fine. But anyways, so that was serendipitous, and I had started it. I bought it a while back, started it, and then set it aside for like Lone Women, and then finally finished it. And it's a good time. It's like it's speculative fiction, so it's kind of like, feminism meets, like sci-fi and paranormal, and there's one that's like a reimagining of Pygmalion. So you got like different scenarios, different stories, and it's just a good time. It really was. And actually at the end, Rumor put in a keynote speech that she herself had done at a literary festival in Illinois in 2017. And so while that didn't pertain to the other stories or anything, I actually really enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite things to read and get to know more about her and how her love of creative writing grew and developed, and what her writing process is, which most writers will say is like such a messy, it's individual to each writer, but it's messy oftentimes and not pristine, and everyone's still trying to figure it out. So it was a good time. And then I did start the third book in the Lightfall series that I had mentioned in the previous monthly catch up. And that's like Lightfall, The Dark Times. So that I haven't finished it yet, but I've been enjoying that so far. And I think that is it.
I had mentioned last month that back earlier in the spring, when Heather recommended Emily Henry, I added all of Emily Henry's books to my hold list at the library, and they all came in at the same time. So once again, I spent another month basically only reading Emily Henry. So the two that I read this past month, the first one I read was Beach Read, which was fun. It's basically about a girl who's a romance writer. She moves into a beach house, which is a house that her dad left to her when he passed away, which also happened to be his love nest with his mistress. So obviously for her, staying there is like not the best, and she's not having a very good time living there, but she has been having some bad writer's block. So she is just kind of stuck in the situation, and then discovers that living next door is her her sort of college rival, who is like the very serious man writer of very serious literary fiction, and so they they kind of reconnect and basically decide to swap genres for the summer because they're both experiencing writer's block. The book has its issues for sure. Like there were some things about it that I thought were like really where they felt really like kind of out of nowhere and a little bit out of place, but on the whole it was a fun read. It wasn't my favorite of hers, but it for her as a romance writer, you can sort of see like where she came up with that concept and like how that concept would have been a fun one for her maybe to write. So but it was okay. The other one that I read, though, might have actually been my favorite of all of hers, which is Funny Story, which is basically, I think it's her most recent one. Is
it
that
came
right?
out this year, that did. Yeah, that came out this year.
Have you read that one?
Not yet, no.
I actually really like that one. I think it was my favorite of all of hers. So that one is basically about a woman. She's a librarian. She has this sort of like wealthy, very sort of like perfect on paper kind of fiance. She moves to his hometown, kind of like uproots her whole life to go be with him, moves into the house that he owns. And then the night after his bachelor party, he comes by and tells her, I have hooked up with this woman who is my childhood best friend, and we are now engaged, and you can leave my house. Sorry, sorry, but bye-bye, is basically what happens to her. And so she's like, oh shit. So she ends up becoming roommates with the childhood's best friend's ex. So the childhood best friend that got together with her fiance, she obviously moved out of her apartment, and so our main character moves in with him in his apartment. And it's really fun. It's basically like these two people kind of like swap living conditions, and then what you sort of start to realize is that the picture that she had of this guy, the best friend's ex, is totally warped because she was always seeing him through the eyes of her ex-fiance, who obviously didn't like him because he was together with his childhood best friend. And so she starts to like slowly get to know him better, and it's sort of like a love story not only between them but also between her and the town, because he also loves the town and he tries to make her start to feel like she belongs in this place where she moved to. And like initially it was like her fiance's town, not her town, and she had like just moved there to be with him. And so she was like, what's my life here if I'm not with him? What's the point of me even being here? And the new roommate basically starts to sort of show her like why it can be great and fun to live in that town. And then also naturally, because it's a romance novel, they get invited to the rehearsal dinner and the wedding and decide to pretend to date in order to make their exes jealous. So it's like fake dating, but it's also very much like I said, a love story, not just about between two people, but about this woman finding and creating her own life in this town that she's moved to. And so I really liked it. Like it was just a really fun read. I really liked those aspects of it. And yeah, so that was a good one. Like I said, I think that was my favorite Emily Henry. So yeah, that's it for me. So next up, we'll talk a little bit about any TV and movies that we watched during the month of September. So Heather.
I watched a lot. Well, I watched. Yeah, no, I did. I watched a lot. I watched a couple of films. So I watched Deep Blue Sea because that was on Netflix, which I've seen before, which is my second favorite shark movie of all time ever, with Jaws obviously being my favorite. But I really, really enjoyed Deep Blue Sea. And I remember when I got so many good memories attached to that film and getting it out the video store, because I am that old, with my friends and us watching it together for the first time, and some just really shocking moments that made us all like,
the part where
oh my god,
yeah, we all know the part where Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Some people might not have seen that movie yet, even though it's like 25 years old.
I did not see that.
It's good. It's so good. I mean, it's not. It's now when you watch it back, it's like it's very generic, but it's such a fun movie. It's just fun. And
Mhm.
it's ridiculous. It's absolutely
Mhm.
ridiculous. It has absolutely no basis in scientific fact whatsoever. So you have to be willing to like massively suspend your disbelief. But it's such a fun film. It really was good. It was just fun. And I've seen it hundreds of times. I like LL Cool J. LL Cool J is the best character in that film. He plays the chef, and he's just great. And I also watched, what other film did I watch? I watched Inside Out 2 on Disney Plus,
Hmm. Ah.
and I was pleasantly surprised, actually. I really enjoyed the first one. And then the second one is, have either of you seen the second one yet?
I haven't seen it yet, but it's on I loved the first one, so it's on my list.
The second one is possibly one of the best, like, depictions of anxiety I have ever seen. As somebody who suffers with generalized anxiety, I have a generalized anxiety disorder. I was incredibly impressed with
Mhm.
the way that the film dealt with anxiety and showed anxiety in, and did it in a very much a way that was like, anxiety is not your enemy. It's trying to keep you safe, but
Mhm.
it just doesn't know how to do it in a way that's appropriate or actually in your best interest. And it was
Mhm.
just handled really, really well. I thought the first one was brilliant
Mhm.
for young kids.
And how it handles depression in the first
Oh
one.
yeah, yeah.
Because it makes it very clear that depression and sadness are not the same.
Mhm.
Depression is different, and that I was so blown away by the first one. I thought it was incredibly spot on in terms of how it depicted depression specifically. And so
Mm.
yeah, I love that
And this,
movie.
I mean, the second one is like, it's one of those films that I was like, if you have teenagers, which none of us do, but if you have teenagers, I would encourage you to get them to watch this film, because she is a teenager in this film, and it's very much the experience of being a teenager and being so desperate to fit in and have friends, and what that does to you internally, and the anxiety that comes from that, and the things that it pushes you to do. And and it talks all about sense of self and all of that. It was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. I cried, but I cry everything. So TV wise, I finished season 2 of Will Trent. I think everything I watched was on Disney, actually. Um, which is based on a character from Karen Slaughter books, which is fun. It's a fun little detective series. I like those kind of series. And then I started Only Murders in the Building season 4,
Mhm.
which I am enjoying as much as I enjoyed the other 3. And I
Mhm.
also started Agatha All Along and watched the first 3 episodes of that, which I am
Mhm.
also really enjoying. I was
Mhm.
so nervous about that as well. I was like, I want to love it, but Marvel doesn't always land their TV series.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm really having a great time. It
Mhm.
might not be for everybody, but I'm really having a good time with it so far. But we are
Mhm.
only 3 episodes in, so
Mhm.
it could go anyway. But
I actually didn't watch that much in September. Well, we did finish Are You Sure, which we talked about last time, which is the traveling show with Jungkook and Jimin from the Korean band BTS. That was delightful. We continued to marvel at their bottomless pits of stomach with that they're able to fit into so much food. Like Matt is just like at one point, Matt's just like, where does it go? Like they're literally on like meal number 5 that day. It's like where they're eating again, and it's like where does it go? Where? But yeah, it was delightful. They're so much fun to watch. It's such a again, like you want something pleasurable, low stakes, like that's where you go. So that was a good time. We did also watch How to Train Your Dragon, the Hidden World,
Mhm.
which is old, and I'm just so far behind. Like Toothless is one of my favorite animated characters, and when this came out in the theater, I had been bugging Matt to see it, and then we just never got to see it, and then it just kind of it fell under the radar. So finally watched it, and I enjoyed it because I just love Toothless, and so it was a good time. So that was fun, and then we did start watching The Penguin,
Mhm.
which is the based on the character, the Penguin and the Batman story. What's his real name? Oswald Cobblepot,
Mhm,
and he's known as the Penguin. Um,
mhm,
Something like
so
that, yeah.
yeah, and so this is starring Colin Farrell, and so he's reprising his role from Batman, the Robert Pattinson
mhm,
Batman.
mhm.
And so far we're enjoying it. I mean, we're only like 2 episodes. I think that's as many as been released so far, but we've really been enjoying it. Colin Farrell is just like a phenomenal actor, and like he's just really rocking this role. I mean, just his like the way he changes his voice and his New York accent, and like then with the prosthetics, like you would never know.
Mhm,
You would never know that was him under there.
mhm.
So he's
Mm.
doing an amazing job. And I will say this doesn't feel like Batman lore. Like this doesn't feel like it's in the world of the DC comics and Gotham as we know it from those movies. It doesn't have that type of like atmosphere. It feels more like a honestly like a realistic kind of like warring, gangsta family, mob family drama, you know.
Mhm.
Then you have the Penguin who's trying to like stay one step ahead, but essentially it's more like a crime drama.
So I also obviously watched some Are You Sure and some Run Jin during the month of September, just the normal BTS content to keep me happy. But I also I finally finished Shogun because I had not finished it previously, and then it won all those Emmys, and I was like, "Oh my god, I never finished that show." So I had like 4 episodes left or something, and so I did finally finish it, and obviously that was an amazing show. I really liked it. They're saying now that they're going to make additional episode or additional seasons, and I don't because the first season covers the entire book. Like
Yeah.
But
it
there's like 5 books, isn't there? Shogun is book 1 of a series of books.
but it's not really a series. It's not a it's like he has his Asian saga, but it's like there's Shogun, and then the next one takes place in the 1800s in like Taiwan, and the next one takes place like they're not the same characters or the same time period or anything. Shogun ends where it ends, and there's nothing additional told about those characters. And in fact, the ending of the book is similar to the ending of the series, where they give you a flash forward to what happens, like historically, what happens with these characters. They tell you, we're going to have a battle, and then this is what's going to happen, and here's who's going to die. Like that's how the book ends, and it's also how the series ends. And
Mhm.
so I don't understand how they're going to do additional seasons of it, but we'll see. I also started Interview with a Vampire because that is on Netflix now,
Yes.
and I am really enjoying it. I'm like 4 episodes in. It is good fun, and it's got this just it feels very Anne Rice in that it has this like gothic tone to it, that's sort of very like heightened and or almost like a show like Hannibal or something like that, where it feels a little bit like heightened and unreal, which
Mhm.
is very Anne Rice, but the way it changes up the storyline and the way that it changes the character of Louis so that in this version he's not like a plantation owner. He's actually a black man who is a businessman in the early 20th century in New Orleans, and just how that changes him as a character and his relationship with Sat, and like it's more interesting than the book was. So I and Jacob Anderson is incredible in the role. Like he's so good, which we all knew from Game of Thrones. Like we knew he was a good actor, but he's like really quite remarkable in the show. And it's great. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I did watch one movie during the month of September, and the reason is kind of roundabout, which is that the Hobonichi launch happened in September, and of course they had a whole bunch of like Paddington stuff in the collection, and I had read a bunch of the Paddington books when I was a kid, like long, long, long ago, but I realized I had never seen the recent, very beloved Paddington movies. And so I finally watched Paddington, and like, oh my God, that movie is so charming and adorable and
Really?
wonderful. Have you guys seen it?
No, no.
Nope.
Oh my God, it's so delightful. I highly recommend it. It
Okay.
was just great fun, really wonderful, visually clever, such a joy to watch. So I highly recommend Paddington. So next up is Wildcard, just talking about what else we've been up to during the month and what's been going on. So Heather.
I have nothing to say for this bit. Unfortunately, I did nothing in September. Like reading and watching TV was all I did in September when I wasn't working or sleeping. So I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, I my September wasn't all that eventful either. It was very work heavy, so there's a lot of work stressors, and so not much going on. We did go to a local Asian festival. You know, it was supposed to be like a bunch of different like food stands where you could try out different Asian cuisines and some vendors there with their crafts. It was bad. It was like it just sucked. It was packed. Like they didn't prepare well enough in advance because it was, you know, packed. There weren't enough like trash receptacles. The lines for these food stands were just, I mean, you were waiting for 20 minutes and the tickets were way too expensive for what you experienced, I guess. So that was kind of a bummer, and we will not be going back. And then and yeah, so really it's just been I did do some coloring, and this was like a Heather made me do it. So I did.
Yay!
Oh my God, this has been so much fun. I've only colored in 2.
But it's better than me. I've still only coloured in 1 and I've had it longer.
So I did this one.
No, he's so cute though.
Is it cute though? Come on. That's a cute spider. That's a cute spider with a heart on its butt.
No.
Like how can you okay. And then the only other one I did was this bat girl. I'm not sure what she is.
That's cute. I like that.
Yeah.
So for me, I guess I probably should have put this in the media section because it was actually, I did go to see one movie with my local Army friend, and we went to see the Chunguk documentary in the movie theater, which that's media. That's not actually a wild card, but going to BTS stuff always feels like an event because you like meet people and there are, you know, armies there and people giving out freebies and like it's, you know, so I don't know, I guess that felt kind of like an event, which is how it ended up in the wrong section. But aside from that,
there are no rules, Sarah. We make
that's true.
We can do what we like.
We make this up as we go. So that is it for our monthly catch up for September. We will obviously be doing another one of these for the month of October. So we will see you all then. We don't have a date quite yet for our next Three Girls Live, but we will be doing that at some point. We are still interested in taking any suggestions. If there are topics that people want us to cover, please feel free to let us know in the comments on any of our channels. Just let us know if you have a suggestion. Same thing with the Three Girls, One Book. You know, I think we would be interested in potentially doing a third one of those. So if anybody has book suggestions, you know, no promises that we will cover anything anybody suggests, but we are always willing to hear what ideas people have. So feel free to share those with us. And that's it for this go round. But thank you so much, everybody, and happy October and have a great one. Bye-bye.